Hi, this is Pastor Keith, coming to you back from church with our Paul Tripp, Come Let Us Adore Him, Advent Devotionals. This is number 5 in our series. The incarnation of Jesus Christ pointedly preaches our inescapable need for radical, personal, and moral rescue and forgiveness. One of the primary purposes of the incarnation of Jesus is to humble each and every one of us. Let me say it this way. Only when you accept the very, very bad news of Jesus' birth will you know that he excited about its very, very good news. Good news is only ever good news to people who know that they need good news. $10 is extremely good news for a poor man, but would not even get noticed by a rich man. The promise of healing is wonderfully good news to a very sick woman, but would not even get the attention of a woman who was in good health. Jesus' birth is both the worst and the best news ever, and understanding both will change your life forever. It is humbling to accept that God came in the person of Jesus to live the way that we are created to live, but would never live to die the death that each one of us deserves to die, and to rise out of the tomb, defeating sin and death because there was simply no other way. God knew that our condition was so desperately grave that he was willing to go to this extent to reach and rescue us. Ponder the fact that God was willing to control the events of world history to bring this world to the place where conditions were right for Jesus to come, simply because he had no power whatsoever to help ourselves out of our desperate state. Humanity was so incredibly messed up that there was only one solution for us: God himself. God knew that something lurks inside of all of us that twists every thought, that diverts every desire, that shapes the direction of every choice, and that controls every word and action. And he knew that because this thing was inside us and not outside of us, we would never be able to conquer it on our own. For all the beauty of his law, he knew that the law could express us, it could guide us, and it could intact us, but it could never be able to rescue us. So the only hope for messed up and desperate people like us was sending the ultimate rescuer, and his is the Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. The reason the birth of Jesus is such gloriously wonderful news is that its birth, God offers you and me the only solution to the fundamental brokenness of sin that is the core of tragedy to every one of our lives. So confessing our brokenness is the only way we will ever fully understand and celebrate the birth of the Messiah Christ. Let me define the brokenness of sin, which every human being shares, with 5 words: separation, inability, delusion, judgment, and hopelessness. First, because of sin, we exist in from birth state of separation from God, for whose glory we create and whose fellowship we are meant to live. Separation from God robs us of the core reason of our existence. Sin also renders us unable. It makes it impossible for us to think as we were made to think, to desire what we were created to desire, to speak as we were designed to speak, and to behave as God intended us to behave. How sad is it to be a human being, but not be able to live as you were created to live, because sin blinds us. It also leaves us in a constant state of delusion. We think we know ourselves well, but we don't. We assess that we are more righteous than we actually are, and because we do, we don't seek the help that we desperately need. But on top of these disasters is something even more terribly. Sin doesn't just leave us separate from God, it places us under his judgment. Because we have rebelled against him and demanded our own way, we have again and again broken his law. How tragic it is to be under the judgment of the one for whom we were created. Yet there is more things to be sad about the effect of sin. Sin leaves us hopeless. Since sin is a matter of the heart, a condition of the nature, it is impossible for us to escape it in our own. We are under its destructive effects and power, yet we can do nothing to help ourselves. The Apostle Paul describes our lives apart from the amazing grace of the birth of Jesus as hoping or having no hope and without God in the world. Ephesians 2:12. The beautiful news of the Christmas season is that God wasn't willing to leave us this tragic and desperate state. He had every right to make his final response to us be one of judgment, but he wasn't willing. He chose to respond another way, not because of what he saw in us, but because of what was in him. At Christmas, we celebrate a God who is glorious in his abundant love and patient mercy. He chose to give grace to those who could never deserve his favor. He chose to rescue those who could not help themselves. He chose to forgive those who had rebelled again and again. He chose not to leave us in our blindness, but to open our eyes. He chose to empower and enable. And because he chose all of these things, he chose to send his Son. The glory of the birth of Jesus becomes even more glorious when it is seen through the humbling lens of a desperate condition that was the reason for his coming. Accept the bad news of Christmas today, so that you can celebrate even more joyfully its wonderfully good news. For further study, Ephesians 2:1-10. May God bless you.